Hello everyone. It is Jackie with Pocket of Preschool, and I am coming to you tonight to talk all about measurement. And when I say measurement, I mean measuring like length and height and measuring weight and measuring capacity. So all kinds of measurement, both standard measurement like using a scale and using some real measurement tools, and then non-standard measurement by repeating objects and lining them up. So we're going to talk all things measurement tonight. So will you tell me in the comments, do you do like a measurement unit, or do you sprinkle it in all year, or do you kind of do both? Do you do like do you focus on it and sprinkle it in, or do you just sprinkle? Me personally, I mostly just sprinkle it in. We do more measurement the second half of the year just because it's a harder skill. So I kind of save that until last. But we sprinkle it in more towards the end. We do some of it at the beginning, but a lot more at the end or second half of the year. So I want to tell you what is up at the top of this post. So at the top of this post, you can grab my measurement math unit, which is part of the Little Learners math curriculum. And it is half off tonight. I left it half off until midnight tonight. So grab it for half off. And then, yeah, if you want to grab the bundle, you can do that too. There are 2 more units left I need to add. I will still need to add the addition and subtraction unit, and then I will also add the 3D shapes unit to the curriculum. And then I have a question for you at the end, so make sure you stay because I have a question for my friends or my teacher friends who own the math curriculum because I need some help with a couple things. So let's just jump right in. So, like I said, tonight we're talking all about measurement. And I'm going to show you a lot of the activities are going to be in my Little Learners math curriculum unit. And you can find all these goodies in here. So, this is the unit. It comes with book list and all the activities with real life photos, plus any, let me find some examples, recording pages as well. So let me just jump right in, and let's talk books, because if we can sneak in some math during circle time, it's even better, right? So I found a really cool new math book. So this one is a brand new book. It's called Ants Rule, the long and short of it. I got it off Amazon. It's in paperback. It is amazing, but it's about these little ants, and they measure different things using ants, just like we do. You could even, measure with your insect counters, and they measure the length of different things, but it is so cool. It is such a cool book that shows kiddos how to do non-standard measurement. So this is a new one that I found that I love. And there are some math start books that I also think are awesome. The Best Bug Parade, comparing sizes. So this one's great. It has some math vocabulary in it. Mighty Maddie compares weight of her toys. And then A House for Birdie. So it's understanding capacity. So the little birdie has to find a birdhouse that fits her. Awesome book. And then I have some nonfiction ones that are great. This one is How Do You Measure Length and Distance? And it shows you all the different ways you can measure length and distance. It has real photographs, which is awesome. Oh, and if you want to see all these books, they're linked in my Amazon storefront, which is at the top of this post too. This one, How Do You Measure Weight? It's in this series. And if you, this one, there's also How Do You Measure Liquids and How Do You Measure Time is also in this series too. But this one's great because it shows different kinds of scales and real life scenarios. So cool. This one I love. It's just a little bit. So it's great for like a zoo theme, but it's basically like a seesaw. So they're comparing the weights in the book. But it's great for during a zoo theme, and it's a great story to retell too. So you can add in the characters and make story sequence cards for it too. Measuring Penny, I think this is an oldie but a goodie. And they measure the different dogs, and they measure them all different ways. This one is great. So this one talks about all the different kinds of measurement. And then this one is a Scholastic series. It's math counts. They just updated it. I think like this one's the old one, but like this one's the capacity book, and it's great because it's, again, real life pictures, super simple text. So a great way to just show kiddos just the super simple basic stuff, or basic kind of facts, and just how capacity works in a way that is easy and that they can understand, because it's stuff that's in their everyday life that they see like on the road or in the store or at home. So I love these math count books from Scholastic. But there's a whole bunch of them. I know the Scholastic series has some of them, but like this one I think I bought off Amazon. The size one wasn't included. There's also one for height that I haven't gotten yet. But I mean, so cool. And this is the length one. Let's see if I can open it a little bit. So cool. Again, super simple text, real life pictures. So those are all some great math books. And again, super simple text. Some of them are fiction, some of them are nonfiction. And it's always great to have a mixture of both in your classroom. And then I also, in the unit, I added these posters. So you can put these in your math center. And it wouldn't be something, I wouldn't have these posters up all year long. Like maybe you're doing a measurement activity, you can put them out for a little bit and then take them away. Because again, everything that's on our classroom walls, it eventually becomes wallpaper. If you don't reference it and use it, it eventually becomes wallpaper. So we want to change out those things on our walls, right? So this is just one, it has just the different ways you can measure and the different tools. And then I have one for just capacity, and then I have the opposite, so empty and full. And then here's one for weight, and then again the opposite's light and heavy, and then height, short and tall, and then for length, short and long. So that way, if you're talking about length and you're measuring, you can say these are the tools we measured today. We're going to use cubes to measure these blocks or whatever it is. So these are included in the math unit. So I want to show you the activities. Before we do that, I want to show you some tools that I have made that I use in my classroom to measure with. And so these are some rulers I got for free sometime when I've been teaching. And what I did was I made them into rainbow rulers. So what I did was I colored each inch just with a Sharpie. Actually, lesson learned for me, I colored them with washable markers, and then we'd use them with an activity, and there was water, and they all like bled. So use a Sharpie to learn from my mistake, but color each inch with a Sharpie. And then what they'll do, let me pull something out. So if you are measuring, they can measure with a real ruler, but they will be measuring by counting the blocks. So it's kind of like they're counting cubes, but they're using the real ruler. So they are learning some important tools. So like they'll have to learn how to line up the end. And when they go to use a real ruler in elementary school, they'll already have that piece down. So again, we're using a real ruler, but we're ignoring the numbers. We're just counting the blocks, the color blocks, or counting the inches that way. So like this carrot is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It is 8 inches long. And you can tell them about the word inch, and you can say each cube is an inch. And they think it's so cool when they are like, it's 8 inches big, or it's 8 blocks big. However they want to do it. So again, you can just buy these simple, cheap wooden rulers. I got these for free from somewhere, apparently Georgia Pacific, because that's what's on there. And again, these are great to put in your math center, but the kiddos love using a real ruler because they think they're such a big kid. And these are really fun, like if you're doing a farm unit, bring in real vegetables. You can measure those. If you don't have real vegetables, put out all your ones from pretend. Measure the plastic animals with them, measure fake flowers with them, measure if you have stuffed animal, like pets from your pet store or something, measure those. You can measure all kinds of things with these fun rainbow rulers. And then another thing I love are these little bean rulers. So I literally took beans and I put up, so you put a piece of tape on the ground. I have a post on how to do these that I'll link in the bottom of this in a minute, or after we're done. So you put a piece of tape on the ground, or on the table, and then you put your beans on, and then you just fold the tape over. And then you just write numbers on them. You can tell I've used these because the numbers are a little faded. This one's better. Just write numbers on them with a Sharpie, and I just have it go till 10. But they're now measuring in a non-standard way. But beans and sometimes little things, when you're measuring with them, so they kind of like move around and wiggle. So this would be easier for a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old to use, because, especially if they have weaker fine motor skills, because now they're little items, they're not gonna kind of like bumble around or move on them when they measure. They can line up the end, and then they can count the beans. And even if they're touching each one, which a lot of our kiddos have to do, right? They have to touch each item in order to have that one-to-one correspondence. They can touch each one, and the beans or whatever little thing, you could use little rocks, you could use seeds, you can make whatever kind of little rulers you wanted. But again, I use beans because they're flat too and cheap. But they can count and touch each one, and they're not going to wiggle on them. But this is a great way to do non-standard measurement using smaller things. You can also use color cubes. These are great to use as well. And just if you can also write the number, like I've before in years past, I've hot glued these together and wrote numbers on them. So this is like our measurement stick. You can also do it with Duplos. I like Duplos because they're bigger, and you can use it with smaller Legos too. But yeah, you can also measure with Duplos. So again, measure with all kinds of different things in a fun way. Some other fun things I love to measure with are chains, because you can link a whole bunch together, and they can see, is your chain bigger or smaller, all kinds of fun things. So yeah, chains are fun. And then I know a lot of us use counting bears, but I will say, if you are using counters like these, like my bears come in different sizes. So for the measurement unit, I divided my bears out, because if you're you're measuring with small and big bears, whether you're doing weight or length, it's gonna throw off your measurements, because you always wanna make sure you're measuring with something that is the same size. So if you have counting bears, go ahead and measure with them. I would just divide them up into different size baskets. All right, so there's that idea. All right, so now let's jump into the units. So I have capacity, and again, I have weight, and then I have length. So these are just some measurement strips, and I have different themes, and I made them, again, this unit is super generic, so you can kind of use it with a lot of themes. It's not with, what do you call it? It doesn't like tie into a holiday or a season. So these are just how long is it? And what they have to do, and I can't find it, but you can use mini erasers. Where is my, okay. So I apparently just brought a couple stars over here, but you could use like insects with these, or you could use counters, like your themed counters, but they can count how many big. So let's just pretend I'm gonna count how many big with mini erasers. And you can count, these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 big. And you can even have them write it on the end if you wanted. But I made these super generic, and they're all different lengths. All different lengths. But I made them generic, so you can use whatever manipulatives you have in your classroom. I did put ideas for you for each strip. So I have, my capacity cards are getting me. So I have water, so you could do like, your farm counters, you could do like your ducks, you could do ocean, you could do basically anything that's in water counters. And you can, again, always use cubes. You can always just measure with cubes. And then I have rotes, so you could use like your transportation counters. And again, I would just make baskets of each kind of counter, because like the boat is, actually take it back, they're the same size, so you could totally use these all together. But you could use the boats for the water, and then the other ones for the road, or you could pretend it's a runway, and they can measure with planes. I have grass, so you could use, I had them, where did they go? You could use like your insect mini erasers for these that I'm throwing. And then I just have simple colors. So that way you can use any fun themed mini eraser for these or cube or whatever you want. And again, they're just lining them up, counting how many and counting how many, measuring how big it is that way. And then we also, when you're measuring, you can also compare sizes. So this is a comparing sizes activity. So what it is I have different cards and then I have a mat. And I put Velcro. You don't have to put Velcro on these, but like I have robots. And then there's flowers and then toothbrushes, trees, balloons, and candy. And what they have to do is they have to order them in size. So they can do like biggest to smallest or smallest to biggest. And then they can order them that way. And there are worksheets that go with this as well. So yeah, but there's all different ones you can use and you don't have to put Velcro on them. I just like Velcro that way. Sometimes they stick and that way they can like show you or show your friends and they're not moving around on them. So there's that. Activity is the first part. And then the second part are these mats. You can kind of use whatever objects you have in your classroom. I'm just making sure I'm keeping up with comments. So you could use like pipe cleaners and they can arrange them from tall to short. You could have different amounts of counting cubes. You could have Lego stacks. You could also do like writing utensils. So they have to compare which one is tall and short. And if they have a hard time lining up, you can tell them to put everything on that bottom line. And they have to just measure how big it is. And they'll go, oh, this one is shorter, so then they can move it over. And then they just have to basically, they're like looking and comparing and just moving around and seeing which one is shorter and which one is bigger. And again, they're just comparing those sizes. But when they use things they can hold and they can even hold them up this way and compare them that way. But that way they're touching, they're feeling, they're looking, and they're examining, and it's not a worksheet. It's something hands-on they can touch, feel, and see and do. All right. And I have, again, you can use pipe cleaners, you can use writing utensils, you can use paint brushes, you can, basically anything that is like long and skinny and different lengths, you can use totally for this activity. So that's a fun one. And even if you don't have my unit, you can totally still do this activity with your kiddos. This is a zoo animal theme activity. So I have a whole bunch of different animals, and then I have these leaf rulers. So basically they're measuring how tall is each animal, and they have to line it up. And I did put a line on each one, so they have kind of a spot to put it. And they can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This camel is 5 tall. And they could also use mini erasers to measure. If you have mini erasers, you can use mini erasers. You could also, again, put out some cubes to measure. And you can say, you know, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stars big, but it's, you know, however many leaves big it was. So you can also compare the sizes that way. And then to make it extra fun, you can put out some real, I say real, but some animal figures that you have. Just grab some from the block center, and then they can measure how big they are. So the jaguar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's 5 big. And with measurement, it's a great for one-to-one correspondence too. It really totally helps them practice all of those counting skills as well. So I think that's another reason why I kind of hold off on a ton of measurement until that second half of the year, because we are really focusing on counting that first half of the year. And to keep going with our measuring, this time we are measuring food. So kind of like measuring at the grocery store. And this time we're measuring the length. So for the animals, we measure the height. And this time we're measuring the length. And you can also put out, again, fake fruits. And this one has apple rulers, so they can measure, you know, how many big is it with the apple ruler, or on the different foods at the grocery store. And just measure and count away. Oh, the asparagus. Oh, do you love that? And when they're also doing the zoo activity and this food activity, it's a great way to talk about vocabulary, because some kids may not know that this is this is asparagus or this is a pie. Like at my house, we don't eat pie, but they know what pie is around Thanksgiving, and that's about it. So, sports. Kids love sports. We love sports. And it's a super fun way to measure. So I had to make some sports measurement cards. And I have these sports mini erasers, but you totally don't, if you don't have them, no worries. You can totally use cubes or pom-poms that color, like this one. So the basketball and soccer, they're measuring the height. And then they have to compare which one, measure the height to see which one is taller. So they're measuring to basically see which one did she kick farther, right? So they have to measure and count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 and 3, so the 9 is bigger. So they're using different strategies to measure and compare. They can visually measure and compare, so they can guess and predict based on how visually it looks. And then they can count and say, well, 9 is bigger than 3, so this one is longer or taller. And then, again, you can just use little pom-poms that color. So for this one, you could use like black and white pom-poms. For the basketball, you could use orange. This is great for March Madness right now. And then we have to measure length too, because right, you want them to be able to measure length, or height and length, So baseball and golf would be great for that, right? And again, these have like a whole bunch of cards, and these also have worksheets with them to match, because I know some of us have to use worksheets and some of us like worksheets, so they're in there. Again, they're optional. I use them a little bit, not a lot. But sometimes, especially if my kiddos are going to kindergarten, I do measure them, or use the worksheets a little bit, because that way when they go to kindergarten, they'll know how to use a worksheet. So then again, they're measuring 1, 2, so 2 is bigger than, I'm just gonna say it's 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it is 8. So 2 is bigger than 8, so the bottom one is longer. And again, if you don't have these erasers, you totally don't need them. You can totally use like red or white pom-poms like I did with this golf one. So we did lots of measuring length. So how much fun would it be to measure how big your friend is, right? And we know our kiddos love class books, because their class books are about them, and it's a great way for them. It also like reinforces the skill too, right? Like it reinforces whatever skill you were working on. They reread it independently by themselves, and then now they're getting that extra practice in there. So this book is Measure My Friend, and it comes with these little feet. So you're measuring how many feet big are your friends. So what you do is you line it up on the ground, and I'll show you one for example. This little guy is 10 feet big. So he drew himself, and then I put the picture at the bottom. You could also just have them draw the feet, or you could draw it in. So Beckham is 10 feet tall. And again, just put these feet out. These are also great to put out in the center after you do this activity, or you can measure big things in your classroom, because they like measure how big the table is, or the shelf, or the chair, or the rug, because these are giant, right? That would be easy to measure the table, how big it is with these feet, because they're bigger. How many big it is of Legos would be hard, because they'd be counting so high, it would get too tricky. They wouldn't have those counting skills, but they could measure how many feet big they are. So that's a really fun activity. And these are also great to throw in your block center, so they can measure their building, so they can, excuse me, I know, I got the sniffles. So they can build their building in the block center, and then they can measure how many feet big it is. These are really, really, really fun for the block center, because we always got to add measurement to all the centers, right? Or sneak in that math in whenever we can. And then again, just laminate it, make it a new class book, and now they are reviewing those skills independently without you. Another fun one is this Measure It. So I just put out some tape, and they had to make a small piece, and then they had to have it biggest on the end. So it says line it up in order from shortest to tallest. Apparently I'm not good at reading upside down tonight. So they have to measure them from shortest to tallest. I did tape, and then my older guys measured how big each one was with cubes. And so then they had to write how big it was down. If your kiddos are not there yet, hold on, I'm gonna tape is sticking together, which that is okay if they are. And all these kiddos, we all did the same activity at the same table. She was not ready to do that yet, but she still had her cubes on there and she was still measuring. She just didn't get to put the, right, she didn't get it at this higher level, but she was still measuring just at her own level. So I think that's important, right? We always want to have them working at their own level, where they can be successful, and we want to keep them challenged too, right? So these two kiddos could have been side by side. They're both measuring with cubes. She's actually writing down her totals, where she is just kind of doing that scribble, that mock writing, but they're both measuring, again, at their own independent level, and they're getting a ton out of the activity. So these are great, and these are also great to throw in their portfolio as a portfolio sample. And you guys know I love my Play-Doh tray, so I just had to add a Play-Doh tray to this one. So this one, they have, can you make a flower? And this one is 7 tall. And I also put the dice to represent the number. That way, if your kiddos can't recognize those numbers yet, it is okay. They can still do the activity. They can just count the dots. So what they're gonna do is they are going to roll a flower stem that is 7 tall. And you can put out, like I have mini erasers, I have different things that they can measure with. So they have to make it 7 tall. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then they would chop off the extra. And you could do this for table time, for small group. And then I put out fake flowers so they can kind of just put that flower on top. I don't know if you can see it or not. I think you can. Here, let me put it on this side. There we go. Maybe you can see a little better. There we go. So that way they have to count and measure. And then again, just plop that flower in there. And now it is 7 big. Counting, measuring, sneaking in some sensory. So again, this is great to, again, sneak in that sensory, especially get it super hands-on if you have kids that are sensory seeking or need that heavy motor work. The Play-Doh is great for that. So they can make flowers that are that big. And then you can also have them make snakes. I'm gonna make one that's a little bit shorter. Let's see, I'm gonna make one that is too long. So maybe you're gonna I'm gonna get some chains. I want my snake to be too long, so you can get out some snakes, and then they can roll it, and now my snake is too long. 1, 2. And they have measured their snake, got in some fine motor work, got in some sensory, especially if you're stuck inside for some reason. These Play-Doh trays are great. They're also great, again, for fine motor and super, super fun. Again, store-bought Play-Doh, regular Play-Doh, whatever works for you. And just put some other things in the tray that are they can measure with. So I put chains, mini erasers, and just some rocks from the dollar store so they can measure with rocks, mini erasers, or chains. And then the flowers are to plop on the top. You guys know I love me some Play-Doh trays. This one is really fun. So we are almost to the weight activities, you guys. Super fun. So this one is a classroom measure. So they can do it with weight or, they can do it with length. And I put these little cards out so that way you can kind of stand them, put them on a little stand, or just have them on the table so that way they kind of have a visual cue on what they're doing. So I have a lot of things on this tray, but you'll find out why there's so many in a minute. Because this is also for another activity too. But basically what they're gonna do, and you would only have the items that are listed on here, or you could have more if you want, totally up to you. But basically they're measuring each one and they can write it down. And you can put them in these dry erase sleeves if you wanna use it once and never again, or over and over and over so you don't have to make copies. Or you can have it as a worksheet, totally up to you. This is for a different activity. But basically they're gonna take each item out, and I don't know where my marker went, but they can take out each item of the book, and then they can measure how big it is. And you pick the measurement tool that they can use. Maybe you wanna have cubes out. So you put a basket of cubes out. Maybe you wanna have rainbow rulers out. So they're measuring how many inches it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is 6 inches big, or six blocks big. So you pick what tool you want to measure. Put that out with a tray of goodies. This rainbow tray is from IKEA, in case you were wondering. I love this thing. They're awesome. It's plastic. So yeah, so you can do it with measuring length, or you can use the scale and measure weight. So what they would do is, let's say we have out cubes and we want to measure how big. Let's say we'll do the glue. We'll measure how many the glue is. Okay, I picked a crazy one to do, didn't I? Always. But they love doing these. And maybe you might have to put out bears. Let's try it with bears. They can measure. There we go, 11, 12. This glue is 12 bears. So they would write 12 bears. Or maybe you have little 3-year-olds and they're just exploring weight. Don't put out the worksheet and just bears with this activity, or cubes, whatever you want to put out. And they can measure how much it weighs. So that's a really fun one. And I think too, using a scale is really fun for them because they love seeing it dip and dive, and they can visually see which weighs more. This is a learning resources scale. This is my favorite one. I had a different bucket one before, but this one's probably my favorite. I love learning resources. Learning resources goodies are always awesome. That is a fun one. This one is why I have so many things out here. So this is a compare activity. So what they are going to do is they are going to compare the weight. That's why I have so many things on the tray. So what they will do is there's a whole bunch of cards. And these are all things you guys have in your classroom, so it's not like you're going to have to go search for crazy things. So you're just going to have them pick 2 things. So I'm going to pick a straw and a toothbrush. So I'm going to put a straw on one side and a toothbrush on the other side. They're going to have to say the toothbrush is heavier because it's at the bottom. Can you see it? Maybe. The toothbrush is heavier than the straw. And then they can put it in again and they can weigh it again. And again, they're using those words like heavier or this one is heavy, this one is light. Which one is heavy, which one is light, which one weighs more, which one weighs less. So all of that great vocabulary. And then we also have, you can also make it a length challenge. So they're measuring length. So they're gonna visually compare it. Let's just do that one again. So we'll do the toothbrush and the straw, and they have to line them up. And they can say the straw is longer than the toothbrush. The toothbrush is shorter, and they can even put them on if they want. Whatever they want to do, they can line them up there. They can line them up somewhere else. Whatever they want to do, however they want to measure, works for me. And again, all these things are things they have in their classroom, or you already have in your classroom, so you're not going to have to go search for all these random things. And then, oh, I forgot this part. So if you want to take that activity up a notch, if you want to make it harder, what you're going to do is you're going to keep that same mat, but you're going to use different cards. So now, instead of using a tray of stuff, you are going to use cubes, and you can decide bears, popsicle sticks. I have a whole bunch of options, buttons, chains. I forgot a couple of my baskets in my office, of course. So what you're gonna do is you can say, have them just pick 2 cards. So maybe I'm gonna pick 9 cubes, and you would have all the other things out here too, and 5 Legos. So maybe you're gonna you're gonna have these 4 things out, and you're only gonna put those cards out that match to the manipulatives you pick. And now they have to put 9 chains in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then they're gonna have to put, so this one has 9 chains, and this one has 5 Legos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now they have to compare which one is heavier, which quantity of items is heavier, and which one is lighter. So the Legos is heavy, and the chains are light. So then they can say the cubes weigh more than the chains. So now they're counting. So now they're comparing quantities of objects. Now they're not just comparing objects. Now they have to count and then compare. So it's kind of taking that activity and taking it to a higher level. And then I have the same for measurement. And where did it go? I have a measurement mat just like that, and I can't find it. Well, there is a measurement one too, so you can use this for the measurement mat as well. Oh, here it is. Found it. So now they can measure out 9 and then 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And do you hear all the counting I'm doing? So they have to measure. I'm going to put it up here so you guys can see which one is longer. So the Legos are short and the chains are long. So then they can also, again, put them on there, put them up there, wherever they want. But again, now they're comparing quantities, and now they're comparing the length. So all different ways to measure, different levels for your kiddos. And then the last one I have for measuring length is this one. So this one's a measure and compare. So you're gonna have your tray of objects again. All right, so now they're gonna compare how big it is by measuring with the different things. Now you're gonna measure how many chains big it is. So they're gonna say the toothbrush is, and then now they have to compare and make it equal. So now they're using the words equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they would just write it with a dry erase marker. And then they would have to measure how many cubes big it is. I thought I had my cube stack. Apparently I took it apart. Of course. Do you see all this fine motor work? Look at this. All this great fine motor work. If your kids love to build, this will be a great station for them because they're building and measuring at the same time. So now they have to build and they have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it is 8 cubes and however many chains. Then they would also measure with bears. So they're measuring with different ways and comparing how each thing measures. So again, just fun different ways to measure and compare all the objects. And then I also have, again, one with the scale. So they would measure with the scale. We're just gonna pretend that card's right there. And again, you would just have a dry erase marker out. So now they're gonna have to compare how many, chains. Chains are equal to the toothbrush. 1, 2, so there we go. And then they would have to count out how many it is and write it down. So again, lots and lots of counting, lots of comparing, lots of vocabulary, tons and tons and tons of math, and a super, super hands-on fun way. So now we have to talk about how to measure capacity, which is basically how much it fills up an object, or like how many cups or how many ounces, those type of things. But we want to do it on a preschool level. So again, the same activity, but now we're filling it up. And these are super, super fun. So again, I have this same mat, but now my tray of objects is different because these are all the things we have to fill up. And instead of using chains, I replaced it with cotton balls. Because if they're filling up this ice cream container, which you can use a real or a fake one, or maybe like a little pint one, just go out, eat some ice cream so you can have it for your activity. And then, because, you know, we gotta have reasons to eat ice cream. I'll go eat some for you if you need. So we're gonna fill it up. So let's do something little so I can give you an example. So and now, I have the capacity cards and I made them bigger than the measurement card so that you can tell them apart. And I also put a little cup in the corner. That way you can tell they're the capacity cards. So you can say, I'm gonna do a measuring cup. So then they're gonna fill up the cotton balls. They have to fill it up. They're gonna pack them in there. And they can either count as they put them in, or they can say, okay, this is too full. So then they can say, okay, it's full, and then they can either dump and count, or they can count while they're putting them in there, and then they have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say it's 11 for time's sake. So they have to put 11, and then they would have to fill it up with cubes. And then they have to count out and see how many cubes fit. And then they would have to do bears and see how many fits. And like, how engaging does this look for a math set? All these fun things to fill up, and all of these fun things to pick from. So this is one activity, and this is a little bit higher level than this activity. So basically what you would do is, again, you have these same capacity cards. You're using the same objects. And I did do the same objects for the activity. That way, if you need to like do a lower level small group, and then this would be the lower level small group, and then you can do this activity for the higher level small group. You don't have to like prep more things. So you can say, which holds more, a spoon or a cup? Oh, here, we'll do the applesauce cup. Which holds more? So you can say, this one holds 3 bears. And this one holds 2 bears. So which one holds more? So this holds more than this. So they can actually put the things, the objects on your board, or they can put the cards on the board. Okay. So again, you pick the manipulative. Obviously, if it's bigger, you want, like if you have 3s, you want something that's bigger for them to fill up, because they're having to count those. And then if it's smaller, you can use those with your older kiddos. You can always put this too in the sensory table. So you could like put this up on like kind of above the sensory table. So that way it's kind of like a visual cue for them to measure which one holds more and which one holds less. So you can have this activity in your sensory table, but I would just have this kind of up on the wall as just like a visual like prompt almost. And then if you love to estimate, okay, so this activity is one we do a lot for when we read the mitten. How many fits, right? So it's like, why don't we do that for our unit? So, and I do have a mitten and a little sock in here too. So you're not gonna need these cards. And again, you can totally do a lot of these activities even if you don't have my unit. You can totally do a lot of these. So this time they're gonna make an estimate. So they're gonna guess how many fit in. And I'm gonna say 10 bears fit in here. And then they could either write it down or just visually say it. And then they have to get an actual amount. So it's a great way to talk about what an estimate is and what a guess is. So I could say 3 bears, or maybe it's just, it's just 2, because you don't want it overflowing. So again, all that great math vocabulary. And again, they can write it on here, or you can just use it as kind of a prompt. Say, how many do you think is inside? What's your estimate? And how many is actually in there? Count it out. So you can see I have some little cues on there for you, and just a whole bunch of cards. And of course we had to have a mitten and a sock. And look at this little sock. I love little kid socks. They're the best. They're just so stinking cute. So cute. All right, let's see if my piles fall tonight. They're not very steady. Okay. Another tray. Oh, and if you're wondering where all of these trays are from, Michael's has them now, Lakeshore has them, and you can also get them in the Target spot sometimes during like different times, like usually January and back to school. But Michael's and Lakeshore almost always have them. Lately anyways. Check my time. Okay, we're doing good. So good. This is one that I think my kiddos are gonna love. My own kiddos tried this one out for me and they loved it. So this one is, how many will it hold? So you can play this 2 ways. So you can use these as a mat. I showed you the sticker way first because I love stickers. So they can try and see how many will fit. So this one fits 4. This one fits 1, it's kind of standing up. This one fits 2, so you could figure out how, they have to figure out how to make them fit. And you could say you have to make them all fit the same way. And so they can one guess based on the size, and then they can count out, so that's 2 different ways. They can figure out which one has the greatest capacity. And I would totally use the word capacity with your kiddos, because our kiddos can say big words, and even though they may not know exactly what it means, then next time they hear it, it's kind of planting that seed, I think, a lot in preschool, pre-K, and kinder. It's just planting those seeds and planting those big words in there, so that way next time they hear it, they'll get a deeper meaning of it. And then next time they hear it, they'll get an even deeper meaning. And then the next time and the next time, and they're just levels of understanding. They're just gonna grow, and blossom and blossom and blossom, because they started hearing these words in pre-K and preschool and in kinder. They're hearing all these great, big, amazing words, and don't be scared to tell them. If they can say Tyrannosaurus Rex or pterodactyl, they can say capacity. So there are different mats. So there's a circle and a square, or rectangle, I need to learn my shapes, and a square. So again, you can use any manipulative mini eraser that you have. You can also use these with water drops if you put it on a tray. It's up to you. Or my favorite way, and this is a great portfolio piece too, you can use it with stickers. So you guys, I have a whole bunch of, like, literally these are my dot stickers. So I keep a whole bunch, and I have some like cut up, so I don't have like full sheets that I put out. So you can put those out, and then they have to circle which one is the biggest, or which one holds the most, which one has the greatest capacity. Or you can use dot markers too. Or if you have those like paper punches, you can have them do paper punches and see which one fills it up. Like maybe you have triangle paper punch or something like that. You can do that too, just as long as it's anything the same size. If you have stickers, maybe just as long as they're about the same size, you can do that too. So these are really fun, and these are great, again, portfolio pieces, because I know a lot of friends have to have portfolio pieces, and capacity is a tricky one, but this is the perfect portfolio piece, and it's hands-on too. So I'm thinking for you guys, I'm trying to make your lives easier by adding these things for you too. And there are some also just random worksheets included. So just some simple basic ones that if you want to throw out, you can. Again, these will work for a lot of different themes. And again, all of the activities I showed you are in this measurement unit. I keep my units on a book ring. You can also keep them in a binder. It does come with binder spines and a binder cover. It does come with like bins. So I keep mine in this rainbow bin. However, we do have more units that then fit, more units than drawers. So probably what I'll do is I'll probably honestly keep the counting one on the top, because that's the one I will be using the most. Or maybe if you use it like one unit at a time, you can put the unit you're working on the top, whatever you like. So yeah, so these are all the other units. You can tell one of my labels fell off. But so far we have counting to 10, counting to 20, 2D shapes, patterns, colors. What's this one? Oh, graphing and sorting. And then the measurement one is will be down there. All right, well, you guys have an awesome night. If you have any questions, again, about this measurement unit, let me know.